Hi, this is Kelly and welcome to our 9th edition of Our Texas Organic Garden. This is winter 2017, December 31st, but about to be 2018. And today we're going to do something a little different than usual. We're going to have a freeze tonight, and we'll have another hard freeze for the next 2 or 3 days. So I thought what I'd do today is to show you how to prepare your garden for freezing conditions. Okay? And one thing you'll see behind me is these eggplants, and they've gotten very tall and they've been quite abundant, but they're not going to really survive this freeze. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to cut them back to about 2 feet tall, and then I'm going to cover them tonight with wrap with a towel and blanket, also maybe put a trash can over them, and see if they survive. If they don't, then they don't, but I've had a couple survive about 3 years ago from doing that. These peppers here, I'm going to put a trash can over them today because, look, they're still blooming and peppers are still coming on them. I really want to try to save this plant. And I have saved peppers before for 2 or 3 years. What we do is we just put some hay underneath the bottom and then stack the hay as tall as possible until the trash can fits on top. And then that should protect it. Let's go ahead and go over here. You see we have artichoke down there. I'm going to have to cover that tonight too, although just freezing artichoke is okay, but otherwise below that, below 30 degrees, they're going to need some help. And same with the sorrel here. You see over there Okinawan spinach. We're going to cut all the leaves off, and I'll show you some more in a few minutes about that. Collard, no problem. They're going to survive. They're very hardy. Same with the celery here. Bok choy is also going to be frost resistant. Yeah, right around when it freezes, but a few degrees lower, we're going to have to cover this for tomorrow. Here with the Cuban oregano, what I'm going to do today, it's very sensitive. I'm going to try and save it. And if you look in this trash can here, I have a lot of leafy compost. I'm going to put all this leafy compost here tonight after the video and just cover it up. And then put a sheet over it, and then we'll also put trash can lid over it. And I think that combination will save the Cuban oregano. If you look here, we still have tomatoes. Look at that. But these tomatoes are not going to live. And so what I'm going to do is I will cut a couple more of these tomato stems and root them. I have a couple of examples over on the other side. Here you see lettuce and arugula. They're also frost resistant down to about 26 degrees, so I'm not worrying about them tonight. We're going to have to put a trash can on both of these artichokes, and as you see, I wrapped the bottom with hay. If the leaves die back, at least the bottom should still survive and the root should still survive. These radishes, daikon radish, they're frost resistant down to really cold temperature, colder than what it gets here, so I'm not worried about them today. One thing you'll see here though, I have these 2 pepper plants. They're not going to make it. They're too tall for a trash can. So what I'm going to do tonight after the video, I'm going to dig these up, and I'll actually put them in a pot and see if they can survive, and then put them back in the ground later. Plants that are very hardy, you see here, are carrots and the turnips here. We have Japanese turnips. After this frost danger passes, I'm going to plant these beets in the back. You see those small beet sprouts from the seeds, and I'll put them in between the turnips here. Here are the mustard greens. Mustard green, they'll survive right around freezing, but other than that, we'll need to cover them. But broccoli and kale, they're very, very hardy here. One of the things I can do, for example, on some plants, you'll see in a minute, like this bok choy over here, you can use a pail or bucket, even a clay pot. get a clay pot like this and just cover them. And if they have a hole in the pot, just cover that hole with a cloth and you should be okay. Another thing you can do, you can get these crates like this. You can put a crate over a plant that's a little bit wider, and then you can put a towel over it. Another thing you can do is you can use bamboo stakes or other poles if you have them. Put them in the ground, put a couple over the taller plants, and you can make a tent with the sheets or the blankets. Let's go ahead and look at this here. You see, today I've already picked these tomatoes, and here are some of the Okinawan spinach. If you come over here, I'll show you that Okinawan spinach. I already picked these leaves here. We're going to pick these leaves. They're sensitive to frost, but I'm going to cover these plants tonight, and I'm going to use different buckets and containers to try to cover them. We have okra here that definitely does not survive any freeze, but I cut it back. They're still alive. I'm going to also cover them in a blanket tonight. Hopefully that will work. These beans here, I went ahead and picked all the beans you see from these today, but they're not going to live in the frost. I still put a healthy amount of hay at the bottom here tonight to protect the roots. I'm going to cover them just to see if they'll make it. The same with the mint here. Mint, the roots should survive, but these stalks here growing up the fence will not survive. So I'm going to cut these mint tonight as well. A couple of these tomatoes here I'm going to dig up, and as I showed you a few minutes ago, you can cut some of these stems. I did this about a week or so ago, and look, these were stems at the bottom of the plant and they've already made roots. So you can do that with some of your hardier tomato varieties and plant them in the soil in a pot, and you'll have them for the spring. Citrus like this one, it's a younger plant. It probably will lose the top part of the orange tree, but I'm going to wrap the bottom, and then hopefully the root still survives. If you go back here just a second, I'll show you what we have here. We have lots of blankets and tarps and clothespins, and we keep them in a box here, container for every year. And if you can have things organized like that for the winter, it'll be great. Look over here, collard greens and Brussels sprouts. They're very hardy, so we don't have to worry about them tonight. Swiss chard though, Swiss chard, I'm going to have to cover these maybe tomorrow night when it gets down below freezing. But right now, Swiss chard should be okay. Let's go ahead and go on over here. I have some red onion that you may not be able to see there. They're a few inches tall, and I'm not worried about them. The onion should be okay. As you see, about 10 days ago we had a frost, and the Goya, the bitter melon, it didn't make it. So it's a very sensitive plant, but I have a couple of them down here, a couple of sprouts. I'm going to dig these up and put them in a container, and that way we'll have these for when the weather gets warmer. Garlic along here, garlic should be okay along with the onions. Not worried about it for the frost. Same with this one, okay? It's going to be just fine. Let's go on over here, and we'll look down here. All hardy plants, collard, kale. I'm not worried about them. You go over here. I planted yellow onion here. I'm going to add some more compost tonight after the video that will help these. These buckets here, these clay pots, I have the curry plant, and then this bok choy, as well as over here the more Okinawan spinach. I'm not going to worry about covering these. I'm just going to move them into the garage. So if you put plants in the garage, it's going to be 10 or 15 degrees warmer in there. That's another alternative you can have to leaving them outside and putting blankets on them. And these beans, I'm probably just going to sacrifice these tonight, unless we put some blankets on them if we have enough. And so that shows you what you can do when it's getting cold and the winter's coming and it's going to freeze. It doesn't happen so much here in Houston, but we needed to be prepared for this, and luckily we are. So we'll see you next time, and Happy New Year.